That car is all CG.
Wait, what?
Shot it with a Sony, tracked it, threw the car in post, and no one seems to be the wiser about that.
Of all the things that are CG, that the car?
I really wanted this car to pull up to the beach. I was like, I need this shot.
What's up, Indy Mogul? My name is Ted, and today we are talking with director Rich Lee, who's a music video director that's worked with people such as Billie Eilish, Eminem, Maroon 5, Lana Del Rey, and today we're not only going to be breaking into some of these most iconic music videos out there, but we're also going to be talking about the production challenges and how to actually concept and create a game-changing idea. All right, let's do this.
Look, I've done a bunch of stuff with Marshall at this point. He wanted to play Max Headroom. He knew that for sure. And he knew that at the end of the video, he wanted to walk on water. This one kind of came to me fairly easily because the song was just so good. The concept that I came up with was basically there's a version of Marshall who's connected, almost kind of like Neo from the Matrix. He's connected via this cable to all of these different machines, and he's in kind of like this library. He's basically ingesting all of this media. After he's gathered up enough knowledge, he becomes rap god.
When you go through a video like this, what are really the processes to coming up with an idea?
I wished I had a routine. I don't. Like, honestly, it's different every time. This one, I remember it coming together really well just because there was such a clear sort of theme within the music, talking a lot about God and all of this. And so it was easy to sort of riff on, think Dante's Inferno and stuff like this.
In this one, it looks like there's kind of three main setups, right? It's Eminem on the kind of crazy color background, Eminem plugged into the screens, and then Eminem actually kind of rapping there with a group of people. Is this common to do kind of a three setup thing here?
We always end up doing some sort of master performance, if you want to call it that. Him especially, he's so captivating, right? Like, I think his performances, you gotta see him. I remember the first time I worked with him on a video called Not Afraid, I did my first performance take with him, and he came around to the monitor and he wanted to watch it. He's looking at himself, and he is hyper focused on everything that he does and every little moment. And it's amazing because he sees something. He's like, oh, I fucked that up. That looks terrible. You guys did great. And so he's like, I know what I got to do. And then we'll do it again. And he'll suddenly that's amazing.
Yeah, all of a sudden your frame looks amazing.
Yeah.
That's the power of really good talent, right? Like, you just do the same thing and all of a sudden it looks amazing.
100%. He wanted to do Max Headroom. I thought that was really fun. I also wanted to try and do something where we kind of modernized Max Headroom. So there's some shots in here where there's almost like a volumetric version of Max. There are these guys that have this software called Depth Kit. So you basically take an Xbox Connect and it's basically got a depth sensor on it, right? And what's so cool is you basically get like a 3D model of him. So in post, what we were doing was you can actually kind of take cameras and move around the point cloud of Marshall while we're performing. So I think that was the one thing I was trying to do, was sort of like update and like modernize like the Max Headroom. Like, what would they do with Max today? Do you remember the holograms from Prometheus? Kind of like that. It's a fun little element. And then, here's another thing. I always know that I end up having to grab more footage later. So there's all these like tight shots of books and like illustrations from an old book. Basically cut a hole out in an old flatbed scanner, stuck a 5D through it, and took the scanner and would like put it on a book and just like run the scanner across the book just to kind of get these shots. As that scanning head moves across it, it's all in camera on, and you get this fun little like scanning effect. Always something. Love was definitely sort of more scrappy in terms of how we did it. And then I thought the track was just gorgeous and just super sort of soulful and beautiful. She had written like a paragraph or two of like basic outline for like where she saw it going. And it was basically her performing to a group of kids. And then at some point they end up in space, like on the moon. And I was like, I love it. This sounds amazing. This is one of those things when I heard the track and I saw her brief, it just all clicked. I was like, I know what this is. It's how her music makes her fans feel, and this sort of odd 60s future vibe. So I went through and I put together all of these space shots. So all the stuff with like the Cadillac, I basically did that in the weekend before meeting her. I wanted to make sure that I could secure this project. This is gonna be dope, and that there's nobody else that can really do this. And she saw him and she was like, oh my God, this is amazing. This is it. I don't think there was never a treatment. That was the thing that's kind of fun. Like, we've just really found some theme or some tone or some loose concept and just kind of make art, which is one of the things that I just love working with her. We needed to get a performance of her with a band on a stage, and that we needed these kids in the audience to watch. That was basically all I grabbed of her, was all of that performance stuff, and everything of the kids. I think we shot for another 4 days with like a super scrappy crew, just me. Basically, it was me and AC, my producer, and a dozen cast members, and we just went all over Southern California just shooting, and then knowing later that I would add stars and planets and eclipses and all of these things.
I can't believe this was scrappy. It looks so good. What goes into making it look the way that it does?
If there's one thing I'll say that sort of spans across her entire aesthetic, is that there's this sort of lo-fi-ness about her visuals. Even if you look at some of her early stuff, there's like an aged retro vibe to everything. Even though we were shooting on, Alexas and red cameras and stuff like that, we ended up degrading the footage quite a lot in post and overlaying grain and scratches and blooming highlights and anything we can do to kind of make it feel vintage but still oddly modern. This was also shot on like every kind of camera you could think of. There's some close-ups of drinks and cigarettes and stuff. Those are things that I grabbed in my garage on my 5D with a macro lens. This first day of her on stage was all shot on an Alexa, but then everything that we shot after with all of the kids running around the cosmos was all shot on a Red. So this shot right here, that was all shot with a Sony A7, but we couldn't afford to get that car back. Yeah. That car's all CG.
Wait, what? That's a CGI car?
Yeah, shot it with a Sony, tracked it, threw the car in post, and yeah, no one seems to be the wiser about that.
Of all the things that are CG, that the car?
I really wanted this car to pull up to the beach. I was like, I need this shot. For whatever reason, couldn't afford the car, the permit, and all the things that go into bringing a car onto a location.
Why so many different cameras for this kind of shot?
We're going to degrade this thing anyway in post. We're going to be doing so much work. Also too, she's mostly in black and white in the beginning anyway, and we transitioned to color. So I figured there's plenty of opportunities to kind of just go through and blend mix formats and mix camera systems without anyone really knowing. I just think it's kind of a funny hodgepodge of camera systems. This is one of my favorite ones, I think, just because I really love the concept. I love the song. It was one of the more fun ones to shoot because we were just out having fun.
Now, before we move on, I want to talk about our wonderful sponsor today, and that is Squarespace, which if you have a reel or a project to show off, you might as well have a website to do it as well. Now, let me just tell you real quick that Squarespace offers the ability to design and customize your website, and it's actually perfect for basically any kind of artist out there. Not only that, but you can also showcase your reels like a pro by just simply linking your video URL and putting it into any desired website spot. Like, say, for example, a video background, which is also super hip for a lot of production companies out there. Don't forget, you can also choose over 200 top-level domains that work for you. So start today by going to the URL squarespace.com/IndyMogul, which you can find in the link in the description down below. Get your free 14-day trial, as well as 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain, and go make that artsy website of yours. So thank you again to Squarespace for sponsoring this episode. And now, back to the episode. This is one of my favorite music videos. How did this project actually come to be?
I got a random text at like 7 a.m. one day from the commissioner at Interscope. And she was like, look, we got this video for Billie Eilish. We want to do Hell. I'm like, dope. We basically just chatted a little bit about what she wanted to do. She wanted these angel wings and she wanted them to turn into bat wings. She tends to like her videos are simple but powerful, right? Yeah. So we kind of boiled it down to, she falls from the heavens into this pit of oil and her white angel wings become black with tar. The flames of hell ignite and then end up igniting her wings and then burning off all the feathers, and they become these demon wings, and then she walks off as Satan, basically.
I mean, what are the obvious challenges that come to bat? Obviously, there's a lot of VFX here.
You're always sort of balancing what the budget is versus what you can do practically versus post. And fire is always really hard. So I was really trying to gun for as much practical fire as we could because there's just you can't really cheat it that well. I would say half of the fire is real.
How do you choose which fire is real?
It really comes down to how much fire we could afford. How do I maximize it, right? So you really just start to sort of spread things out a bit so that it's like, okay, as long as I have some fire just on either side of her, behind her, I can kind of leave a gap, and if I have another big fire off to her side here, I know that there's enough light coming from this fire that's illuminating her that if I add some comped fire in between those, it's going to feel right. It's after we wrapped Billie out, we hung out for a few more hours and we just shot fire elements.
And you can comp those little fire elements into the background.
And we can
so
track
it's
those
duplicating
in.
that fire.
Yeah.
How is this shot done where she crawls out of the floor? I mean, what is that?
We built this little pond here to hold all of this oil. It's actually basically like Nickelodeon slime that we tinted black. But obviously our parking lot's flat and they're not going to let us dig into the ground. There's like no way they're going to let us like demo out the parking lot. And off in the corner of the parking lot is this giant mound of dirt, literally a 15-foot mound of dirt and rubble. Why don't we just bulldoze the dirt into the center of our parking lot, excavate it and dig a hole in it and just kind of do like a gentle rise, and then just build the, put pond liner in it, fill it with the oil. There's our thing. And that's what we did.
So instead of digging a hole, you raised up everything around the hole.
Pretty
and
much.
made that the hole.
Pretty much.
Okay, then the last shot I want to talk about here is the needles shot. It's just a visual frame that gets passed around nonstop. Where does this kind of shot come from, and what is the inspiration for it?
So that was the end of her Bury a Friend video. These shots right here are from the previous video. These shots, we did those. And all of that, you see where all those wings are starting to protrude out of her body? That's where we built a silicone skin, and then we poked a couple little holes in it. And those feathers, I made a glove. Literally, I did this myself. I made a glove out of white feathers, and I put a little bit of blood on the end. And then I'm actually sort of pushing my hands through the silicone skin, and I pierce through and I break it. And it was all in camera, no CG, no visual effects, anything like that. Because I wanted this stuff to
This is all in camera?
It's all in camera. And then there's some stuff earlier where you see the feathers growing out of her skin. Remember in American Werewolf in London when he transitions into the werewolf?
And the fur
fur
starts to
comes
pop
out?
out of here? Yeah.
So they put the fur in, so they pull it out of the skin, and then in post, they just reverse the shot and you get the hair growing out. That's what we did there. So I was just pulling the feathers through the skin, and then you reverse it and it looks like they're starting to grow out. If you can do it for real and it's simple, just do it that way.
All right, next video, you ready?
All right, let's do it. So I was a sculptor forever ago, right? So yeah. I love, the human form and figure drawing and all of this stuff. And I always wanted to do something that kind of captured that kind of visual. I got this track and just the mood of it and the tone, for whatever reason, I instantly thought this is a piece of sculpture. There's something about this that feels sculptural to me, but fractured. One of the things that we used to do back when I was sculpting was we were always making molds of things. And so when you sculpt something like a person or whatever, and you're making out of clay and then you have to then cast it, these molds were really cool. And you ended up to make them, you would basically take silicone and you would coat the clay with it and the silicone would harden and then you would peel it off. And sometimes when the mold didn't work or if the mix was wrong, you'd peel out little sections and you would just get a section of a head or a piece of an arm. And I just always remember just how cool that looked. And then again, cut to me starting to get into directing and whatnot and starting to play with visual effects. When you go and you key out a green screen and you invert it and you're only seeing the person, there's something I'd always been mesmerized with, just keying things and reversing them, just how that looked. There's a lot of strange artifacts that you see when you're doing visual effects on projects.
You're kind of used to seeing reality warped a little bit.
Yeah. I was how can I capture that and still sense their performance and still make it feel sculptural? I went and I actually did a test. We got a model and we just got blue paint and I just kind of started wiping it on her face a little bit and a little on her arm and just kind of did the video as stills, just as a proof of concept to make sure we could do it. All we're doing is wiping and painting blue paint on their bodies. And then in post, we key the blue and then invert it and then just desaturate it. And there's some work to kind of make edges look nice and all that. And then we put the background back in because I wanted it to look like we were on a white site, like a studio backdrop still, so it wasn't just white, that there was still some sense of a background. And so the concept's basically Adam sort of conjuring himself into existence, but that's the gist of it.
How do you stay up to date with kind of all the new effects that you can do, or how do you create new effects? Does it ever feel like everything's been done and that there's not a new thing that can be invented?
I try not to say everything's been done, because if you're doing that, you're not paying attention. You know what I mean? Because there's so much that's happening now. There's so many ways to sort of twist images around and to capture things in some new, interesting way. And it's constantly evolving, right? So I think I can't speak for anybody else, but I think for me personally, I just try to just see what's happening out in the world. You know, what are all the different sort of creators out there doing, what's happening from a technological standpoint, because honestly, that's going to drive a lot of what we're going to be doing in the future. You know, I do think the kind of work that we're going to be doing in the future, it is going to be very technical, and we're all going to have to evolve in order to sort of stay current.
As a director, how do you just start to think bigger in terms of the process?
I think just being versatile and just learning as much about the craft as you can. You know, at least from my point of view, it's more than just being able to sit behind a monitor and tell a cameraman to make it look a certain way and move the camera around. Like, I get in there, I operate as much as I possibly can. I'll get my hands dirty as much as possible to make sure that, you know, the vision that we're trying to go after is realized, right? So learn as much as you can about the craft of filmmaking, right? And all the different aspects. Be as educated about all the different things you can, because I think it'll come in handy, even if you're not the one actually doing it, just when you get to that place where you do start to do, whether it's visual effects or stunts, that you can have that language to help communicate so that the things get done the way that you want them. And then the other thing is too, I would say, is just experiment. I think that's what's so exciting about where we are today, just in terms of technology and the camera equipment and the sound equipment and just everything that's so available is so good that, you know, the experiments that people are doing today are just blow the experiments that I was doing out of the water when I was first starting out, just because of the quality, right? So just tinker, just play, shoot as much as possible. I think that's the big thing. Just go out and do it, man.
Alrighty, guys, there you have it. There's your episode with director Rich Lee on a couple of his most famous music videos out there and how to actually break into what are the production challenges that went into making them happen. Now, if you want to find more from Rich, we're going to put his information down below, so check that out if you're interested as well. Again, thank you to Squarespace for sponsoring this video. Start putting your brand out there by going to squarespace.com/IndyMogul for 10% off your purchase of a website or domain. But that is it for me, Indy Mogul. My name is Ted. Of course, catch you guys in the next one.
Marshall actually decked that guy. But it was an accident, but he was supposed to give him an uppercut, and he goes flying, and he full on hit the guy in the face, and the guy got a black eye. But
is that the actual take?
Yes, that's the take. You can.
That's the actual take.
Yes,
you got hit in?
Yes, yeah, it was gnarly. Marshall was so apologetic. I mean, it sucked. You're not supposed to hit people, but we were doing all kinds of crazy stuff.